and come back to this one later on as well if you want. I'll just put the link for this in our chat panel here, so you guys will have this. There we go. And yeah, so today we're going to talk about animation, all the fun stuff. I prefer doing animation rather than character scene setup and character creation. It's animation seems to be a bit funner, and you can do a lot more dynamic and interesting stuff with the animation. So we're going to be talking about. Let me just go to the. Where's my mouse? There we go. Go to the upcoming one, which is the one we're having today. So today we're going to talk about not really super advanced, but a little bit of facial mocap and animation. I'll save the facial mocap stuff for the end because I wanted to show you guys a couple of other techniques for facial motion capture before we get to the actual facial mocap, and that's using the live face plugin for Cartoon Animator 4. Just some character interaction going back and forth. That'll be assisted by the basic camera movement, which we'll talk about. And we'll get to scene rendering at the end there. We'll do some really cool body animation. Now, for animation, we're going to be talking about motion clips, keyframe editing, and all sorts of stuff. So a lot of different types of animation we're going to be covering in this webinar here today. I want to mention as well here that we do have the 2D Cartoon Animator Contest, Animation at Work, coming up here. We do have a couple of special offers in the content store for this. You can see this one right here, the Campus Hero Bundle. This one's ending, the early bird special is ending on August 31st. So make sure you check out that. If you're interested in participating in that contest, lots of cool stuff for Crazy Talk, or Cartoon Animator 4 rather. I'll put that link in the chat window as well. Okay, and as always, what we're going to be doing is the live demo for the first 90% of the webinar here. And then for the last little bit, I'll answer any questions you have. Please put your questions in the Q&A section of your Zoom panel there, and I'll get to those at the end of the webinar. You can put them in any time throughout the webinar if I come across something that you have a question about. And of course, we are recording this live on YouTube. It's being broadcast live on YouTube, rather, and we are recording it. So if you miss anything, you want to review it on your own time, we'll be sending you out a link for the video that you can watch and review on your own time. In addition to that, of course, we're sending out the survey. So if you have any suggestions for future webinars, anything you'd like to see, anything you'd like to change, feel free to put your comments and suggestions in the survey, and we'll send out a 10% discount for the content store coupon for you upon receipt of that survey. Okay. All right, I think that about covers it all. So let's go ahead and close down the Google Chrome right now. And we're going to be covering this second part of the. You should have received a link to the projects for this webinar series. And if you haven't, just please let us know. We can send out the links for the projects for you, so you can review and go through, deconstruct it by yourself. All the stuff that I've done in these two projects. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and play back this little scene here, in case you're not familiar with it. Let go of her, you snake.
Oh, help me, Jim.
You'll never take me alive, Jim. We'll see about that.
Oh, Jim, you saved me. Jim.
All right, and again, apologies for the absolutely cheesy voice acting. That's all just me pitching my voice in different ways. Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to try and recreate as much of that as we can today. A lot of stuff to get through, so let's get started right off the bat here. I'm just going to delete this transition here. We'll go. I think we went through the transition in the last webinar, but if you have any questions about transitions, please let me know. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go out of camera record mode. So this is camera record mode at the top here. If you click that off, it'll just go to your preview camera, and you can move your camera around freely without having to worry about animating everything. Now, what I'm going to do to start off here is I'm going to just basically remove all the animation from my characters. Okay, so the way you can do that is right-click your character and select Remove Object Animation. Okay, so it's going to remove all the animation from this character, facial and body. Now, he's going to stay in that pose because that's the pose that I have him in when I remove the animation. And I'm going to do the same thing for these characters as well. Okay, since we're going to basically start from scratch, I'm going to show you how to do everything here, and we'll go from there. Okay, so remove object animation. There we go. Okay, so we have 3 motionless characters. However, I'm just going to keep the sound effects just for timing purposes and stuff like that. We can modify that later. Okay, we talked about this really quickly in the last part of the second day last week. We just have to have our character basically run through the snow. If you haven't watched this, really simple stuff. The way we've done it here is we've used a root motion found in this mission moves pack. Okay, this is the content pack you can find from the content store, and in the move folder right here, we have run forward. Now, I'm not going to worry too much about. I did talk about the difference between in place and root motions in the last webinar. So if you have any questions, or if maybe you didn't attend that, you can feel free to ask in the Q&A section, and I'll review that at the end. But since I already covered it in the end of part 2, I won't really cover it too much in this one, since we have a lot of stuff to get through. So I'm just going to go ahead and apply that loop, the run forward to L. The L stands for loop, by the way. S stands for start, and E stands for end. Okay. So again, for this one, since it's a root motion, I have to apply it twice. I can't loop it. Okay, when you loop the root motion, it'll go back to the root every loop. And again, I'll talk more about that if you need later on. Okay, so run forward, end right here, so that we've just basically created our character running forward and ending up like this. Okay, because the camera is going to pan over this way, and he's going to see the villain with the with his princess or whatever in tow. Okay, so we just have that. Now if I press F3 and go into the timeline, all motion clips will be found under the motion track. Okay, so you can see run forward right here, and run forward to 3E means end. Okay, and that's the clip right here. Just like this, and there you go. Okay, so pretty simple stuff. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to start right off the bat with some facial animation. And we're going to do some simple stuff, simple lip sync animation. I'm going to show you how to modify and refine the lip sync, since it's a kind of a useful thing to know. And this is the only kind of situation we're going to be modifying the lip sync. The other stuff, I'm just going to let it do it automatically. Okay, so we have the character coming up, standing up, and as he stands up, he's going to say something. Now we're going to close the motion track down to avoid confusing anyone here, and open up the face track, since we're focusing exclusively on facial animation. Okay. Now don't worry about these facial motion clips; those are just included in the regular clip there, the body clip that I applied. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to apply a voice. Okay, apply a wave file, so my character will automatically do the lip sync. So the way you can do that is go over here to the left and create script. Now in create script, you have an option to record your own voice. Live, you can do text to speech. You can import a WAV file or our Crazy Talk script from any of the previous Crazy Talk software, or also Crazy Talk 8. I'm just going to choose a WAV file since I already have this prepared. And I'm going to choose this WAV file that I have right here, scene 201. Let go of her, you snake. Okay, so let go of her, you snake. Now, right now, it doesn't seem like he has much expression on his face, and we're going to deal with the expression in just a moment. But before that, I'm going to deal with the lip syncing. Okay, so lip sync information can all be found in the voice clip track here. And I can twirl this down, and when I twirl this down, you'll see, if I just zoom out, you can hold Alt and scroll your mouse button to zoom out, by the way. You can see here it creates a Visine talk pose clip. This is the clip that contains the data for all the keyframes for your character's lip sync. And you can see the wavelength there in the middle. You can click and drag in the top here. Let go of her, you snake. Okay, and you can just go as fast or as slow as you want. Now the automatic lip sync for this one is like pretty good, but not super ideal. So what we can do here, let go of her, is every keyframe here basically allows your character's mouth to create a shape called a phoneme. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just delete these extra ones that we don't need here. Okay. And where we have the L there, we're going to use this phoneme right here, the TLD. Okay. So if I double click on that, you can see it opens up the lips editor window here. Now the Lips editor window allows you to use, various phonemes. You can use none, you can use BMP, there's a j, e, okay? So you get the point. They all have different mouth shapes, otherwise known as phonemes, to generate, that appearance from your character. Now, on the bottom, we have expressiveness as well, which doesn't really affect characters with sprite mouth. It only affects characters with morph-based mouths, okay? So we don't have to worry about that. That's mainly a feature in iClone in the 3D software. This one's mostly done through sprite switching. So since you start off with an L, we'll just go ahead and go here to the TLD, okay? So and then here we have, whoops, so we're going to get rid of this TH here and take this TLD here. Okay, so when he has the go, we're just going to move this ooh. Okay, so now we have a go. Okay, now it's very simplistic animation, of course, because these are just 2D characters that use sprite switching to animate their mouths. If you really want to get into detail, you can do the morphing on the faces, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. We'll talk about that in one of the later examples, how you can morph facial features. So here we have a V of, okay. So FV, like her, and then here we have an ER. So we can just use this one like an R, okay. So now we have go, okay. You can see sprite switching. And then here we have a U, so U creep. U, and we'll delete the E's here. Oh, snake, he said snake, okay? So we have the S and the Z. Snake. And then for this EE, we can just change this to an A. Okay. And so what I'm doing here is I'm just, basically cleaning this up a little bit from the automatic lip sync. And so we can have a better let go of her, snake. As this one will be a K, okay, and then we don't really need anything else. So snake, and then we just have a none, okay, right here. Okay, so I mean, I kind of went through this a little fast, but essentially it's just the same process over and over again. It's kind of clicking and dragging through your wavelength here. I'm trying to coordinate the keyframes with new biasing shapes in your character's face. You snake. Okay, so here we have it. Let's play it back. Let go of her, you snake. Okay, so it looks pretty good. If you just play it back, let go of her, you snake. But again, really easy to do that once you get used to just adding in keyframes. And if you want to add another keyframe, just double click. And it'll bring up, it should bring up, just double click, and it'll bring up the Lips editor and just add the keyframe right there by clicking it. Okay. That's how you can add. Just if you want to delete them, select them and delete them. Okay, pretty simple stuff. So we have let go of her, you snake. Now, what I want to do here is I want to have my character have some expression. Now I'm going to show you the easiest way and kind of like the laziest way to add expressions onto your character when they're talking. So the easiest way to do that is simply go over here to your face key editor. Okay, you can also use the Control K hotkey. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to twirl up the voice clip track. Since this is the track that you use for the lip syncing, and we don't need that anymore. We're going to go into the facial clip track now. Okay, and in the facial clip track, we have a couple of subtracks here for head, face, and eye, and we'll talk about the difference between those a little bit later here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just right as he's about to talk, that's where he starts talking. We're going to add a keyframe here. So we're going to go to template. And what I'm going to do is go to the happy style here. Okay, there's expression style happy. And here we have a neutral expression. So if I just double click the neutral, notice it'll add a keyframe there in our face track. Okay, and that's really all we need to know. Any of the expression stuff here will be saved in this face track. If we go down to face motion, this is other stuff that we'll talk about a little bit later. But when you use expressions, okay, when you use expression templates here, it's only going to add a keyframe here in the face track. So what we've done here is we've added a default keyframe right here for neutral, really. And then we can go over here However long we want the transition to take from neutral to angry, this is what we're going to do now. So I'm going to go up here to expression style and then choose angry, and we'll choose this like evil 01 right here. Okay, we can choose other angry expressions like this one here or this one here. Okay, some of them look a little bit more confused than angry. Okay, but we're going to use this evil one here. Now you can adjust the amount of evilness if you want by using this expression slider. You can bring it down so you can see he's less evil. Okay. So this is similar to the expression slider we saw in the Viseme ellipse key editor there, but this one you can see the difference it makes. Okay, so let's have him about 90% evil. Okay, so now what we have is we have a transition between neutral to evil. Okay, before he begins to talk, he gets this expression on his face or angry expression. So like this. Let go of her, you snake. Okay. Good enough, and that's really the simplest and easiest way you can you can animate characters' facial expressions. To be honest, I use these quite often, and I'll show you a little bit later how you can refine them and modify them when we get to our other characters conversation. So let's go ahead and do this, and then I'm going to just go ahead and double-click evil again, and that's going to add another keyframe. So what I can do here is from here to here, let's have him go back to maybe more of a less evil expression. So we'll double-click evil again, and this one I'm going to take it down to like maybe 20, okay? Because he's still angry, but maybe not as angry. Right? So we have like this. Okay, you can see that expression slider moving from 100 to 20. Okay, let's take a look at the whole thing. Let go of her, you snake. Okay, good enough. Now, I think what we'll do for this one is we'll just keep it because I'm going to show you a little bit about the morph, the transform, and the deform a little bit later on. Okay, we'll just keep this one really simple. But what we're going to do to kind of complement the facial animation is we're going to add a body animation as well. So under animation, I'm going to go over here to Turner's Mail. Okay, and this should be included with your Cartoon Animator 4 default. Okay, and go into side here, and then we have one called Talk, I believe. There should be a bunch of Talk ones down here. Talk S2. Okay, so let's just double click that and apply it to our character. Let go of her, you snake. Okay, but you can see the talking goes on a little bit longer than we want it to. All right, so to modify the talking, let's go out of the face track here and go into the motion track. So again, all body animations will be found in the motion track. Okay, so you can see our Talk S2 right here. Okay, this is the one we just applied. So let go of her, you snake. And I think right here, as he goes to like this position here, that looks almost like a neutral position right here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is you can actually break these clips. And the way you can break them is by right-clicking them and selecting break. Where you right-click, it'll break at that point. Okay, so see, I don't want the rest of this motion. I don't want him to be like, giggling or whatever that is and like doing like jazz hands. I don't want all this stuff. So I can just take that second part of the clip and delete it. Okay, great. So now all we have is this. Let go of her, you snake. Okay, and if we want, what we can do is at this point, we can just do something like go to our 2D motion key editor for the body. And if we really want it to be like a default motion, what we can do is we can just go ahead and press reset. Or rather, set key, rather, okay? And that's going to ensure that we have a keyframe here that'll allow transition into future motions, okay? And this is exactly the way we want to do it. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just keep that there for now. And what we have next is we have the girl talking. So we have the girl saying, "Oh, Jim," or whatever she says, okay? So we have, "Let go of her, you snake." And then give it a couple frames for the camera to pan over. And then we just move over to our female character. Doesn't look too scared right now. We can make her scared by using the expression template again. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep her expression from the very beginning to be sort of scared. Okay, so we'll go to frame 1 and do that same thing, face key editor, and this time we'll use templates. There is some scared ones, I believe, sad. Okay, so these ones right here. Okay, sad 03 I think is good, but we don't want it to be that sad. So let's just take it to like, okay, maybe a value of like 65. And there you go. Okay, whatever, 63 is fine. Okay, Now, another thing you can do is at frame 1, what you can do is you can see this little gizmo in the front here, this little kind of grayed out gizmo, movement gizmo. And let's see what that does. Okay, I'm going to go into the face track here. And at frame 1, of course, we're going into face motion here. The facial clip, rather. We have that default key. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take and click and drag that. Let's actually open it up first so we can see. Face transform, face sprite, and face deform. Okay. Let's go to this frame just so we can kind of see where it adds. We click and drag her face. Boom. You can see it adds in the head track right here. Okay. Now, the head track is different from the face track. And that's the expressions are all found in the face track here. So again, if I wanted to double click there, it'll add the keyframe in the face track. Okay. Now the movement is going to add in the head track. That expression will add in this track. So let's just keep that at like, 60, whatever it was again. Okay. And so here we go. Maybe at the very beginning, she kind of notices him coming and then turns her head slightly and has that expression on her face. Okay. So let's just pay attention to her until he talks.
Let go of her, you snake.
This is her cue. This is when she's going to jump in and say something. So we're going to use the create script and wave file. Okay. And hers is just like, oh, help me.
Oh, help me, Jim.
Okay. And of course, that's in the same voice clip track there. Now, let's modify her face a little bit as well using the same expression templates. So again, sad right here. Take it down to 64, whatever it was. Doesn't matter. And then maybe as she begins to talk, she changes a little bit to something like helpless. Okay, there you go. So,
oh, help me, Jim.
And then we'll just double click helpless again. And you can see it's just extending the facial clip and adding new keyframes there. Maybe we'll take her back down to sad with like 50. Maybe she's not as sad anymore. Okay.
Cake.
Oh, help me, Jim.
Okay, and of course, again, what you want to do here is emphasize that with the body expression as well. Okay, so let's go to, for this character, I'm going to show you how to remove animation from one object or one part of your character's body. So as she begins to say, help me, Jim, ooh, help me, Jim, we're going to go over here to Elastic Folk side. Okay. Where is it here? Yeah, there we go. Elastic Folk side, human basic motions here. And this one is idle and talk, I believe. Oh, wrong one, sorry. Elastic human side, idle and talk. And there's one called stand 03. Okay. STAND, stand 03. Okay. This is the animation we're going to apply to her.
Oh, help me, Jim.
Okay. Now it looks a bit strange when both of her arms are going up because that guy's supposed to be like holding her her face or her neck or whatever it is. So what we're going to do here is we actually want to remove the animation from our character's right arm. And the way to do that, let's get out of the face track here and go into motion, so we can see our stand 03 there. So at the frame where you want your character to stop moving, in this case, it's going to be the first frame of that clip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click that clip and select Remove Motion. Now, you can remove motion from any part of the body here. And I'm going to choose my character's. Now, I'm going to choose the left arm here, okay? And the reason for that, if I remove the left arm, it's actually her right arm. But because we've flipped her, it's kind of a little, I don't know, a little twerk or a little little quirk, I guess is the word for it in Cartoon Animator. Once you flip your character using the horizontal flip tool up here, the arms will just change position in any other like editing tool. Okay, so the right arm will now become the left arm. Okay, so we have that. And you can see her right forearm is still moving. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click in there again on the very first clip. And I'm going to go remove motion and remove left forearm. Okay. And that's going to remove. Now she can be like,
Oh, help me, Jim.
Okay. There you go. And that's all taken care of. So that's 2 animations already taken care of with 2 characters. The third one I'm going to do is the guy behind her. So this guy's a little bit angry, and what I'm going to do for this guy here is I'm going to move his face a little bit to the side. Okay, again using that. Let's select him and have his head position slightly over here. Okay, now this is the head movement that I'm doing right here. Okay. What I'm going to do is also move his eyes slightly, because that kind of looks like he's looking at a 45-degree angle, maybe not looking at the character off in the distance. So at frame 1, I'm going to make sure he's looking at the character. At frame 5, kind of like similar to what I did with the girl, actually. Okay, so let's go to the face motion track here, or facial clip rather, and let's go to frame 10. And the way you can move facial features on your character's face here, I'm just going to go ahead first here and press clear. Okay, right up here on the top, that'll refresh everything. And if I select the eyeballs, okay, I'm just going to select the eyeballs for now and just set their initial position. If I select both of them and they're both orange, I can left click and drag and move them around like this. Okay, so I can move the eyeballs all separately, just like that. Okay, so let's have, as he hears those footsteps in the snow coming closer, he'll move his eyes over that way. Okay, now notice that ended up in the eye track right here. Okay, so we have this. Okay, so we already talked about the head, we talked about the face, and now we talk about the eye. Okay, so those all can be found under the facial clip track. They're all sub-tracks of facial clip. Okay, we'll talk about facial motion a little bit later on with all the different specifics. Okay, so we have him like that. Even have his head move over a little bit as well. We'll put sort of a different frame. Just about there. There we go. Okay. Okay. So his eyes land on the character first, and then his head moves slightly still a little bit more. So that makes it look a little bit more natural. Okay. If your eyes and your head move at the exact same speed, exact same destination, it looks a little bit robotic. So what you can do is you can click and drag that or that keyframe, just double click and add another keyframe there. You can delete the original one if you want. Okay. Emphasize it. Okay. Okay, so we have him coming up and saying, "You're gonna get it, you snake," and then
let go of her, you snake.
Ooh, help me, Jim.
And his cue, he says, "You'll never take me alive, Jim." Okay, so we're gonna create script again, use a wave file, and 0203 is the next track.
You'll never take me alive, Jim.
Okay, so "You'll never take me alive, Jim." There's the clip, of course, and we're gonna do a couple things here. The first thing I'm going to do is have a facial expression, and this time we're going to be talking about how you can transform and morph different facial expressions. So we're going to do the same thing first. I always like to do this because I'm.
Help me, Jim.
Okay, no, it's his turn to talk. We're going to use the same expression template. Someone's going to use was he angry? We'll use something like this one maybe. Okay. And you can see we added it there. We forgot to add a neutral frame before that. So let's go over here. Now it's going to be a transition from like here all the way over to here. Okay. I want that transition to be like really close together. So let's go to here and just do happy and neutral. Okay. And the transition will be from here to there.
You'll never take me alive, Jim.
Okay. So again, we're using that same expression. And let's just go ahead and add another angry keyframe at the end here. Which one did I use? Angry one.
Jim.
You'll never take me alive.
It was angry one. Nope. Angry 2 probably. Okay, there we go. So angry 2 again. You can also copy and paste the keyframe if you want. I just think it's easier to double click again. So
you'll never take me alive, Jim.
Okay. So it's very important because what we're going to do between these two keyframes here is we're going to modify the eyebrows to kind of emphasize them a bit more. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use the deform and transform tabs here. Okay. So transform is the one you normally want to use first. Okay. And I'm going to just modify the eyebrows. Okay. So I'm going to zoom in really close on his face here so we can get a better look. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and left brow. I'm going to go ahead and select default pose. Okay. And that's going to add, let's close up our facial clip track now. That's going to add, if I go down to facial motion, I'm going to go to open my face transform and deform. We won't use sprite for now. And I'm going to open left brow and right brow. I'm just going to keep it simple for now. Okay. And you can see it adds a keyframe in face transform and L brow T, which stands for transform. Okay. You'll see left brow T stands for transform, S stands for sprite, and D stands for deform. So you can see the right brow, same thing. Okay. So what that's done is that's added a keyframe, basically a keyframe for transform, deform, and all together, for everything together. Okay. So what I'm going to do here,
You'll never.
I'm going to just go ahead here and go into that same face key editor. I'm going to take my left brow and I'm going to move it like ever so slightly. Okay. Just like this. Okay. And that's going to add a keyframe in face transform and on left brow transform. Notice it didn't do anything with deform. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to rotate it like this slightly. Okay. And I'm going to take this, do the same thing for the left or for the right brow. Okay. Right brow. Now you can move it ever so slightly, or what you can also do is you can go down to right brow T, which stands for transform again, and you can just double click on that track. Okay. Like this, and just move it ever so slightly. And it'll add that little keyframe there. You can also press reset sprite, and that'll add the keyframe as well. Okay, so from here to here, here we have the eyebrows going up like this. And let's just kind of move them down a little bit more. So they look even more aggressive. Okay, like this. So this is the angry.
You'll never take me. You'll never take.
Okay. And what I can do now is I can even deform those. So in order to deform them, what I'll do is here, I'll go here, left brow. If I press default pose here, that'll add the deform tracks. Deform keyframes and the deform tracks there. And then here, I'm going to go to deform. Now deform, you can like really emphasize stuff. Like I'm going to left click and drag. You can see I can basically morph all these different individual points. So I can bring them up like this. We can give our character really aggressive looking eyebrows like that. Okay. And that's what we're going to do. That's what I want to do here in this case. I'm going to take right brow and do the same thing. So we're just going to like really emphasize it like that. Okay. So then from here to here,
you'll never take me alive, Jim.
Okay, that's something that we couldn't achieve by using those expressions. So we used transform and deform in combination, and added those together.
Take me alive, Jim.
Okay, and then I can go here and select a default pose. But notice that when you select default pose, it'll go back to the standard one that you had before. So generally, what you want to do, you don't want to go ahead and you don't want to use default pose. I'm going to Control Z that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste all those keyframes. Okay. Now you can move up your timeline as much as you want to something like this, and I'm going to just left click and drag and select all those separate keyframes. I'm going to right click and select copy at the top. Okay.
But you'll never take me alive, Jim.
Okay, maybe here I want his eyebrows to kind of go back to at least what was the default pose. So I'm going to right click here and select paste. And then maybe a few frames later, I'll just go ahead and do that same thing and default pose, okay? Or instead of the default pose, if we reset all, it'll take it back to the original position, okay? For the deform track there. All right, if we're in transform and we set reset all, it'll take it back to the transform, original transform position, okay? So notice that if you reset all in transform and reset all in deform, it's going to be different, okay? Reset sprite will only reset that single sprite, like the left brow or the right brow, okay? You can reset sprites one by one, okay? So that's kind of, that's a more detailed look into like how you can do facial animation, okay? And I'll get to more facial animation with, that's really all you need to know, to be honest. I've basically covered every single track here. Now, of course, there's tracks for other stuff like, ear, nose, mouth, and all that stuff. and stuff for like front hair and other facial features for your character that are kind of add-ons from the default. But again, any questions on that, you can ask me. I don't want to get into too much detail here since we're limited for time, but just want you to basically know when you modify stuff, when you use all of these tools, where the keyframes go and how you can manipulate them. Okay, it's very important to know. So we have this.
You'll never take me alive, Jim.
Okay, and then of course we can add, some facial movement like this. Let's use the gizmo here. So what do we do for the gizmo? Go back into morphs. If you select default key, it'll add a default key here, which we don't want to do in this case. Okay, I'm going to control D that, but I'm just going to go ahead and move his head ever so slightly, just like that. Okay, and again, we don't need to worry about the facial motion stuff. So let's get rid of all those tracks here. We only need the facial clip track, which has the head keyframe. Okay, so here. So here, let's go ahead and just do this. And I'm just going to zoom out here a little bit. And here.
You'll never take me alive.
And then if I just double click in that head track, again, I can add a keyframe. And then I'll just copy and paste this one back here. Okay, so I'm going to copy, right-click, copy that keyframe, and copy and paste it right here. Okay, so you can go into as much detail as you want for the facial animation. I'm going into a lot of detail here just because I think it's interesting to know.
You'll never take me alive, Jim.
Okay, so very, very basic. Just adding that emphasis on the head movement adds like layers on top of the expressions, layers on top of the body movement, and you can just go from there. The final thing I'm going to do is add a really quick body animation for this character as well. Okay, so
you'll never,
as he says, you'll never take me alive. So we're going to go to face now into motion, and I'm going to use the 2D motion key editor here again. And what we're going to do here is just go ahead and set key for full body. Okay, set key for full body. You can set keys for selected parts, but I normally always just set keys for the full body. Okay. So here we go.
You'll never.
As he's talking, we're going to have him reach up with his arm and point to the character. So right arm, excuse me. You can select it from the 2D motion key editor, or you can select it from the bone on the character. And I'm going to go like this, bring it up like that. And you'll notice a couple things that are wrong here. The hand's kind of pointing the wrong way, and we want to make that movement a bit more natural.
You'll never take.
Okay, so it's fairly fast.
You'll never.
What you can do is you can take your the keyframe and the transform track, and you can right-click that, and you can go to transition curve. Okay, we're going to talk about transition curve quite often in the next 15 minutes here or so, and you can use a smooth transition curve. So what's going to happen is the movement from here is smoother than it would normally be. If you take that transform keyframe and bring it up here, all the other subsequent transform keyframes will follow along. Okay, so let's make that double-click on smooth.
You'll never.
Okay. You can go ahead and use like damping, for example.
You'll never.
And you notice if you use damping, it'll move like a little bit further and move back into position. So that's the damping. I like to use damping for something like dynamic motion. So his arm will move up and then back into the original position. And you can see that in the curve right here, the transition curve. Okay, it'll go and then back to where it was normally supposed to be. Okay. Okay. So let's just do that. And what I'm going to do is this frame here, I'm actually going to use the sprite editor now. Okay, so the sprite editor is found over here on the left in your toolbar. And what I'm going to do is, because I don't want that hand looking weird when it comes up from behind the female character, I'm going to select my dude here. And we can select his arm right here, so his left hand. Okay, or right hand rather in this case, because they're both flipped. And we're going to use this fist, okay? So notice that when we do that, there's going to be a couple things happening. The first is that there's going to be a sprite keyframe in your sprite dope track here. That's going to be an overall sprite keyframe. And if you go down further, like I mentioned here, the S stands for sprite on all the tracks. So I did modify the sprite on the right hand. So the right hand sprite will have a keyframe right here. Okay. And from here to here, what I want to do is I want to have my character point. Okay. So he says, "You'll never take me alive." And nope, he's not pointing that way. We have the other direction here as well. So he's going to be pointing this way. Okay. So we have this.
"You'll never take me alive, Jim."
And then we can have his hand shake back and forth really quickly, just by doing something like this. Keyframe editor, use the right hand. Let's, for selected part, this part here, let's just do it for the full body. Okay. Okay, set a keyframe there. Take his arm like this, bring it forward like that, and back like this. Okay, and then we'll just go ahead here and just press reset. Oops, not reset, sorry. That'll reset your character back to default mode. Don't do that. And set a key here and just kind of bring it back to a position like this. Then we have a movement like this.
"Get me alive, Jim."
Just like, you know,
"Get me alive, Jim."
Now, again, you can use transition curves between those. I don't want to waste too much time on this right now, though. So let's just do that for now.
"Get me alive, Jim."
And then right here, just double click on that right form transform. Actually, we'll set a key for the full body there. And then we'll just go down here and bring his arm back to the regular position. Okay, at least to behind the female character. And then here we can also do is as he's moving back, let's change his sprite, hand sprite, to a fist instead. Okay, since he's no longer pointing, just a little subtle touch you can use. Select the sprite there and change it to a fist. Okay, then we have this.
Jim.
His hand will become his finger will become a fist as he moves down. Okay.
"Get me alive, Jim."
Okay, good enough. Now, I want to take a bit of time here to do that karate kick that we're all waiting for. I promised that in the end of the last day webinar. So let's go ahead and do that. So after the taunt from the guy, "You'll never take me alive, Jim." Let's just go to the correct position here. And then Jim will say, again, using the wave file script here. This one.
"We'll see about that. Hiya!"
Okay. So he says, "We'll see about that," and then does like a hiya. Okay. Now, that is going to be back here. Where is he? Okay, where did you add it? We added it here. Oops. There we go.
"We'll see about."
Okay, so of course, he needs to have like another sort of body animation here as well. So what we're going to do for him is we're going to use the Elastic Folks side emotion, and there's a criticize one here. Okay.
"We'll see about that."
Okay, so it's pretty simple.
"We'll see about that."
And he's going to go into his hiya. Okay, so the hiya like kick can be found under here. G3 human motions, the stunt. Okay, there's a kick. And in case you weren't here for the last couple of webinars, this pack I'm using, G3 human motions, mission moves. This is you have to purchase it from the content store. If you want, I'll put that in the description or in the chat window a little bit later on. Okay, so I'm just going to use this kick here.
Hiya!
Okay, so the timing is pretty good, but you know it doesn't really look dramatic. Okay, so let's talk about how to make it a bit more dramatic. So we have this.
Hiya!
Okay. So there's two things we need to mess around with here. One is the kick clip in the motion track, and the other one is our characters. If we go into face, the other one is our character's clip, our voice clip for the character. Okay, so first of all, let's separate this.
See about that.
Okay, so this whole Visine clip, we want to separate the "we'll see about that" with the hiya. So let's just right click on that and break it. Okay. Now, the timing is perfect right now.
Hiya!
Let's just take that other, break off the end since it's unnecessary. This is why you want to keep your WAV files or your MP3 files really close, really clean. Okay, so the timing is good for that. But let's go ahead and extend it a little bit so it sounds a bit more dramatic. So I'm going to select that clip. Now, if you stretch one of these clips out, again, we have all those keyframes down here for the facial visine shapes. Okay. If I take that clip and I stretch it out, make sure that you have speed enabled, not looping up here. Okay, you want to have speed enabled. I can stretch it out like this, and you can see the whole thing will stretch out. We can make it more like, okay. So, okay, so we stretched out the voice. Now we need to stretch out the kick as well. Okay. So for the kick, we'll just do the same thing. I think we stretched it out to like, I don't know, something like that. Relatively the same length, okay? Okay, so pretty good. Okay, we'll just work with that. Okay, so the next item of business here is to move our character closer to the guy, since he can't be kicking air. That would look really stupid if he kicked air and then the princess is like, oh my god, I'm doomed. This guy can't kick. So we have to have him flying through the air and kicking this guy in the face. So the best way to do that, use the transform track, okay? So here we're going to use transform. And it's very important when you start a transform movement or motion from one point to the next, add an initial key. Okay? So here's where he's launching, okay? So basically all we need to do is just double click on the transform track here and add a keyframe, okay? That's where he's launching. And we're gonna move right here is where he's gonna be like really close to the dude's face. It's like this, we'll move him up over there. We'll add another keyframe in the transform track. Okay, so now it looks pretty cool. Now he's like, whoa. Okay. And I think, close enough. We can have him maybe a little bit forward. And I'm not going to bother animating the reactions on the character's face as he does the kick, since that's, takes more time, and it's already in the project. You can see what I did later on. Okay. So as he kicks like this, we'll have him just kind of remain in position. So just double click on the transform track. And then as he's falling to earth, boom, this is where he lands. Okay, with one foot on the ground there. So he's going to be landing at like on the other side of the girl, right about here. Okay, he looks so short compared to that guy. So here we have this. We have this motion like this. Okay, so there's our flying kick. Now what you can do here is you can add transition curves on these to make it seem a bit, a bit more dramatic and less linear. So you can go to transition curve here. Right click on the keyframe, transition curve. Smooth would be good for this one. Okay, because it just has a really that, okay. And then when he lands, we can have him end in a bounce. Probably not in this case. Let's just go ahead and use the damping. Okay, so he'll move a little bit further. For this one, I'm just going to choose linear. Okay, so we're going to have him have a camerawork anyways. Okay, so next thing we're going to do really quickly is we're going to have that dude just fly backwards, and let's make sure our sound effects are on cue first. Okay, a little bit slow, so we can find our sound effects again. If you missed it, under the project tab, sound effects 1. Okay, sound effect needs to be here. Let's click that and move it up a little bit. Okay. Good enough. Okay. Okay, then this dude here is going to be flying backwards. You can just imagine that his eyes are wide with amazement as Jim flies through the air to give him a roundhouse kick to the head. Okay, so initial position right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the motion key editor for this, for the most part, okay? And I'm going to set a key right here, motion key editor for everything, for the full body, okay? Adds in the hips there. And then Okay, from this point to this point, we're going to grab his hips and we're going to move him backwards like this. Whoa. Okay. If you don't want the feet to kind of be stationary like that, I can just Control Z and undo that, and I can unlock the feet. Okay. Unlock the feet constraints just like this, and then we can move his whole body back like this, and we'll take his feet and maybe move him a bit forward like that. And let's have him bend the other way here. There we go. And then his neck will be kind of rotated backwards. Take his chest, or torso rather, rotated backwards. And the arms should be kind of up like this. And again, I'm not going to worry too much with the sprites. Okay, so we have him moving from this position to this position. Now, it looks a bit strange right here. And what we can do is we can emphasize this using the transition curves. What I'm going to do here is maybe a few frames after he lands that initial position. What I want to do here is set another key, okay? And in this key, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on my hips right here, and I'm going to go right-click and use transition curve for this, and we're going to use that end in a bounce. Okay, so now we have something like this. Oops, make sure we move it a little bit first. Okay. And the hip will lead to end in a bounce, and the torso end in a bounce as well. Just like this. Okay. And what I'm going to do here as well with the transform is transform position right here to here. We have a transform key right there. Right here. Okay, so right here we have this, and right here we'll have the transform, maybe like a little bit further back like this. And then we can right click on that and transition curve and add that. Okay. And this one needs to be a bit move around here like this. There we go. Okay. So once we move that transform keyframe, then we get a little bit of a bounce like this. And you can also do stuff like stutter start or start end. But this one, we're kind of just going to kind of have them bounce for emphasis at the very end there. And the more you move it, the more kind of balance you're going to get for that transition. Okay, so maybe move it more like this, and then we'll have something like this. And then he'll pause right there, and we'll add a transform keyframe, and go to add a key editor frame there as well. That should open. There we go. And set a key there, and then we'll have him collapse onto the ground. So from here to here, we'll have him just. Let's go ahead and lock those legs, and take that hip, and move it down like this. So he'll fall to the ground. And what we should do here is we'll fix that later. Let's just do this. Kind of have him bend over and collapse at Jim's feet. What a hero. What a stud Jim is. Kind of cover up his face like this and just put him into that position. Okay. If we don't cover up his eyes, we could just use sprite editing or whatever. But let's take those feet there and rotate them back. We need to take the heel there. There we go. There we go. We don't want his feet to look like they're kind of in a weird twisted position. There we go. Okay, we'll work with that. We move it a bit further down. There you go. Okay, I'm going to just work with that. So then from here to here, he falls to the ground, and we need to emphasize that motion with a transform keyframe again. And just kind of bring him down further like that. And use that end in a bounce. Transition curve, end in a bounce. Okay, so then we have something like this. That should have a bit more emphasis than it does right there. It needs to be a bit closer up. Okay. And let's try something like this. Nope. All right. Should be no problem. But not sure why his transform position isn't ending in a bounce like that. I think we can even just modify some of the editing keys for that one as well. So we take the torso transform and hip transform. Those are generally the main ones that you want to make sure you transition curve with. There you go. Okay, so the hip and the torso need to be as well. Okay, that's how you can get that effect. And I think, gosh, we have a few minutes left. What else can we cover? Maybe we can see some quick facial animation. Now, originally I wanted to have do the facial capture, facial mocap of Jim at the end there doing the wink and everything like that. But I can just briefly show you in a couple minutes here the facial motion capture. Okay. And then we'll move on to the Q&A section. So if you have any questions in the meantime, put those in the Q&A section there. And in about 5 minutes or so, we will get to those questions and I'll answer all your questions. But for now, I'll just show you a quick example of animating a character's face using facial mocap. All right, let's do this. So I'm going to zoom in on our female character here. How about? Okay. And I'm going to show you examples of how you can preview and record facial motion capture. Now, of course, you do have to have the facial motion capture live package. Okay. I'll just find it in Google really quick and send it over to you. Oops. Sometimes it's even easier just to Google things. Maybe not in this case. Facial motion capture. Okay, here you go. Okay, so the facial motion capture pipeline facial mocap bundle here. You can go ahead and check this out on your own time. Really cool stuff, really fun to use, especially in classrooms and stuff, and also saves a lot of time if you're on a time constraint. Like this is one of our characters, 4 tunes. There's a lot of really cool soccer videos, funny soccer videos on YouTube, football, whatever you want to call it, wherever you are in the world. Some really cool stuff, and always on time constraints because there's games almost every day. So you have to like whip up an animation that same night and have it prepared for the next morning. And facial motion capture is definitely the way to do that. So let's go ahead and check it out. So the first thing you need to do here is you'll have this face 3D tracker, okay? And you're gonna just see me in just a moment here. Apologies for the funky hair. It's just kind of came back from swimming a little bit earlier. And here you can see the facial tracking technology. So if I move my eyebrows, open my eyes like this, there's points here that will track your facial expressions and facial feature movements. Okay. Wow. All right. So there's different settings you can use here. If you go up here to settings, generally I recommend using a higher resolution if your computer can support it, because the higher resolution is going to get more detailed responses. It's going to be at 10 frames per second though in this case. So the frames per second will be a little bit less. But I find actually that the lower frames per second kind of helps to smooth out the animation in the end. Okay, so let's go from that. So we have to make sure we have the Face 3D tracker enabled first, and go over here, and then go up to plugins. Okay, this is where you'll find your Motion Live 2D plugin. Just go ahead and load that up. You can use panel settings here. You can hide it during preview or record. Set the opacity, yada yada. Okay, let's just open up that panel right there. So let's go ahead and we can kind of maybe see my face as well. So we'll just move me over here and move this up here. Okay, so there's me all alone in the bottom corner there. So the first thing you want to do is you want to enable your gear right here. So just go ahead and click this, left click to connect. Now your character is connected. As simple as that. Let's just close down our content manager here, maybe. Okay, never mind. We'll just zoom in a little bit closer on the character's face. Okay, so Then we'll go ahead and throw up the under character list. For the face, you need to choose face 3D. Now, I don't have the body. I don't think you want to see me dancing around. Maybe you do, but tough luck for today. We're doing facial animation only. So we're going to choose face 3D here. Okay, make sure it's checked and connected. And yeah, from then on, you can record audio if you want. You can do. I find that actually the lip syncing is better when you're using facial motion capture than it is with the automatic lip sync in a lot of cases. I won't cover all this expression mapping and stuff unless you really want me to go into that detail on that. For facial profile, we'll set sprite 45 degree. Okay. Now, very important here that we set a 0 pose. Now, 0 pose is just going to be like basically a neutral pose where I'm going to be staring directly at the camera. Let's see if my laptop can. That's okay. I'm going to be staring directly at the camera here, and you need to have a neutral expression just like this. Just look like you're super bored in a lecture or something like this. So once you have that pose set, just go to set 0 pose. Okay, so that's a reference pose. Now what you can do is you can preview, okay? And you can see me mad. You can see the eyeballs expand, or the eye is getting larger and smaller as I'm moving like this. My eyebrows going up and down, okay? Ooh. Ah. I can close my eyes. I can move my eyes from side to side. Okay, so pretty easy stuff. And that's really, I think it's really effective. You can also do head rotation as well, just like this. Head movement down and up like that. Okay, lots of different things you can do. And you can see it's very responsive. Now, if I want to record, I can just go ahead and press record. Keep in mind that my character has this weird expression on her face right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and record something. Okay, so you got some nice recording right there. Now, if I want to, layer on top of that, I can do so. Let's go ahead and close down our 3D key editor since we already have our basic animation captured there. Let's maximize this so we don't see my ugly mug anymore. And let's go over to face. Okay, so face is where your clips are going to be saved. You can see when we did that, it saved a vising clip as well as a puppet clip, okay? So puppet clips can be used. I didn't really talk much about facial puppet, but it's something that you can use. And if you want more to explore that more, I can talk about it later, but I just want to show you more of the detailed stuff. Facial puppet is, puppeting your character's face using your mouse movements. And it's one of the original technologies of Cartoon Animator. So, okay, so there's my motions back and forth. Okay, you can see the nice 360 head effect right there. Now again, the same thing happens. If you want, you can modify this further. You can go ahead and on top of that, layer on top of that, you can use your facial clip, facial motion stuff right here. So again, you don't want to use templates in this case when you're layering over top of puppet clips. What you want to do in layering over top of puppet clips is you want to make sure that you do some keyframe stuff like this. If I move my eyes like that, maybe from here to here, let's load up that. So you can see what it does here is it creates multiple keyframes, okay? Now, that's not going to really matter much. If I want to, say delete these keyframes, I can do so. I can just click and drag maybe here and just delete all those eye movement keyframes. And say, for example, from here to here, there's only that one eye movement. Let's say, for example, in the middle, I wanted the eyes to kind of move down, okay? So then we'd have a movement from like here, down, and over to the other side, okay? And generally when during animation, facial animation, when a character moves their glance from one side to the next, inadvertently, they'll have sort of a downward motion. Maybe not this exaggerated, but you'll notice that when people go from one point to the next, their eyes will kind of move down a slight bit, maybe about to there. So if we move back like this, And of course, that's super slow, super slow example. But again, I can use transition curves here as well. So what I can do is from that frame to this frame. No, we can't use transition frames in this, transition keys in this one, actually. You'll have to make do with what you have. Just maybe move the eyes up here. So they go up and then down. Okay, and so on and so forth. So you can modify that. You can also deform or transform them. Okay, and that goes into other stuff as well. But again, I just kind of wanted to give you a sort of a whirlwind tour of the facial motion capture, how you can record it, where the data goes, and how you can modify that data and refine it according to what you need. All right, so I think that's about it. Let's get to our Q&A section here, guys, and we'll try to answer as many questions as we can here. All right, first question is from Alana Perlin. When using motion capture to input onto a character, please recommend either the iPhone webcam or both and differentiate between their features. Okay, so the iPhone, you can use iPhone capture as well. I don't have my iPhone on me right now. But with to be honest, I personally find the web capture to be a bit more reliable. Now, I don't want to say that the iPhone one is bad, but if you already have an iPhone 10, one difference you'll be able to notice is that this technology is very similar to kind of like FaceTime technology. Since we're using the webcam, your webcam doesn't have a depth cam built in. One advantage that the iPhone does have is it has a depth cam, so it can see which if your mouth is like this or like this. See, with the webcam, it doesn't really notice if my mouth is closer to the camera or not. It just like follows the tracking points. So okay, like this, or essentially the mouth will kind of be in the same position. Now, this doesn't really matter when it comes to like 2D animation, to be honest, because your characters' faces aren't really morphing. They're just kind of doing sprite replacement. But when you're talking about stuff like animation in iClone, 3D animation, where the three-dimensional feel is very important, where your character's mouth comes forward or backwards. In that case, it's a kind of a benefit to have that depth cam as opposed to the tracking points, because you'll be able to kind of analyze a bit better the depth of certain facial features coming closer to the camera, particularly for plosives like that, like I mentioned, like pooah. Okay. When it comes to the Cartoon Animator 4, to be honest, yeah, they're all pretty good, but just for ease of use, if you have a webcam, like I just have a webcam in my laptop, right? I'd rather not bother like taking out my iPhone and setting it all up and everything like that. The features are all the same. Alana, when you're asking about the features are exactly the same. It's just basically two means to the same end. And if you have an iPhone 10, definitely feel free to check that out. That was our original motion capture was with the iPhone. We didn't have webcam before, but now we have the tracking technology that we have. Okay, so hopefully that answers your question. If you want to go into more detail about the iPhone stuff, there's tutorials that I can recommend. Let's actually go to the Learning Center. Well, you guys know where the Learning Center is, hopefully, for Cartoon Animator. I'll just show it really quickly for those of you who may not know. On the product page, let's get out of here. On the product page, you just got to go over here to Learn. Okay, and you'll see tutorials and online manuals. Okay, just go to tutorials, and you'll find the tutorials for my handsome friend here, Inuk. This is the facial animations with webcam. So this is kind of what I just showed you. And there's also a 2D motion capture for iPhone 5 down here as well. Okay, so these are the original ones that we did using the iPhone. So check these out. Okay, this goes through the entire iPhone workflow. If you want more detail on that, I'll put this link in the chat window for you guys just in case. There you go. Okay. So, I mean, I could go through a lot more detail here on facial motion capture, but I think these tutorials here will definitely be able to cover a lot more than I would in the next few minutes. And again, if you have any specific questions, you guys can always email me as well. My email is kai@reallusion.com. That's KAI@reallusion.com. And let's move on to the next question from Michael. I have Cartoon Animator 4 pipeline and still have CTA 3 pipeline. Is there any reason to keep CTA 3 on my computer? No, to be honest, there's no features that CTA 3 has that CA 4 doesn't have. So, I mean, the only reason I would still keep both on my computer is, I don't know. I can't really think of a reason, actually. Maybe if you want to. It's like I still have my PlayStation 3, but I have a PlayStation 4. But I mean, one can do everything the other one does. So I don't know why I still have it. Maybe nostalgia. But yeah, well, the controllers are different. But in this case, the controls are the same. Okay. If there's anything that you can't find in Cartoon Animator 4, it does have everything that Crazy Talk Animator 3 has. So I wouldn't see any reason to really keep both of them unless you have unlimited hard drive space. All right. Thanks, James, for the compliment on the webinar. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. I'm most passionate about animating, so I can go into like hours and hours and hours of detail on animating. But yeah, unfortunately, we have a limited time for these webinars. Maybe one day we can do a 2 or 3 hour one. I'll just me talking for 3 hours. Be longer than church. Goodness. Okay, so we have Nathaniel asking here, oh, how do you cut from a wide shot to a tight shot? Yes, this is one thing I wanted to cover really quickly because I mentioned I would do camera animation. Let's just close this down. And camera animation. Okay, very important. So let's just do some really quick camera animation. I'm going to go over here to camera record mode. And once you're in camera record mode, this camera will be red. And then any camera movement you make will be recorded, okay? So be careful when you're in camera record mode because every movement you make will be recorded. So let's go from here. Oh, we already have the camera animation. Okay, so if we go into project, it's already open. Let's close down this, go to camera, and we have the camera keyframes right here. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete all those. We'll start from scratch really quick. Again, this camera movement is really simple. So we're going to start here, and as he's moving along, as we hear the footsteps stop, okay, we'll just move over here and pan to this scene right here. Okay, so that adds a keyframe there in the camera track. Now notice that linear camera movement looks kind of stupid and it's really too slow. It's not dynamic enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on that keyframe transition curve and do the smooth one. Okay, so that looks a bit better. And you can add more strength to that smooth if you want to. You can make it like almost stationary at the very beginning. Okay, so when you add it almost stationary at the beginning, it'll kind of zoom over and then kind of slow down as it approaches our characters. We can really emphasize that by like 95 or something. That, okay, maybe something like I don't think 70s would do. Okay, I think maybe even the 60 we had before was good. I like that. Okay, so there's our initial camera movement. And then from that point to when our character talks, we're going to use that damping, okay? So I'm going to just, right here, I'm going to just double click and add another keyframe. And then from here to here, we're going to really quickly in on our character's face, like, let go of her, you scamp, or you snake, he says. All right, just like this. This is kind of like a mid shot. This is called a mid shot where you can kind of see half of the character's torso and their head. So something like this. So let go of her. Zoom into the face for emphasis. Let go of her, you scamp, or you snake. Okay, but I'm going to go ahead and add something like the damping one. Okay, so the damping, you can see it goes. Let go of her. Zoom in and then back, really quickly back in, like that, and it just adds emphasis and more energy to the camera movement. So, let go of her, you snake. And then
Let go of her.
okay, so I add a keyframe there. Just double click in the camera track to add a keyframe, and then we pan over really quickly to the girl, and she's like, okay, just like that. And again, I'm going to use the damping effect again. We can do the end and a bounce if we want. Okay, end and a bounce will add a bit too much exaggeration though, so I like the damping one. Okay, just a little bit less.
Ooh, help me, Jim.
And then from here, we go up to our.
Help me, Jim.
And then
You'll never
we're
know.
gonna just double click there, and then we pan out as the guy starts talking, just like this. Okay, so we have. Let's use the damping for that too.
Jim.
You'll never take me alive, Jim.
And then there. Let's just move this over a bit. And pan over to Jim as he's talking like this. There we go. And use the damping.
We'll see about that.
And then here we'll have a zoom out to his whole body. This. Again, I'll just use a smooth for this one.
We'll see about that.
And then here we'll have zoom out to like this angle here. Maybe so we have following it. Okay, and then here we'll just kind of go in a bit, and this one we're going to do for this one is we're going to have accelerate. Okay, so the camera's going to accelerate, and then here to here we'll have the end and a bounce. Okay, so and this one needs to be a little bit further in. Okay, so that end and a bounce can add emphasis to the the energy of the kick. Okay, and you can see that in the project later on. But yeah, that's some basic camera movement. I won't go into more detail on that. Just kind of showed you a couple minutes of camera animation there. But let's move on to the next question. So hopefully that answers your question there, Nathaniel. Cutting from a wide shot to a tight shot. Now the camera motion in Cartoon Animator, the camera options are not too detailed. It's one of the very basic things that hasn't really been improved a lot in the 4 versions, but there are improvements coming to camera options and camera movements and everything like that. But yeah, camera movement and animation is very basic in Cartoon Animator 4 at this point. Okay. Okay, Robert mentions here during the motion capture, the eyes were backwards. Looking left, the eyes looked right since you flipped the character. Can you flip the eye looking direction? That's a good question. I've never actually tried that. I've never really paid attention. Do I still have my thing open? Nope, I do not. Let's open our Face 3D tracker here. There's me again. Oops. Opening the wrong things here. Yes. I believe there might be. Gosh. That's a smooth head. Yeah, you can have the mirror right here. Okay, so the mirror available. And that should mirror everything. It's mirror option here at the bottom. So that's, yeah, for the flip character, use this mirror function right here. And smooth head could be useful if you have a lower resolution on your webcam. Again, I use the 1280 by 720. Blend data on next recording, that's something else entirely. Kind of blends from one layer to the next. We can talk about that later if you want as well. But yeah, to answer your question there, who was that? Robert. Yeah, I guess you use the mirror option there, okay? Yeah, so the the whole flipping thing is a little bit confusing to me too, and I think this is something that we'll try to resolve in a future version of Cartoon Animator. Yeah, the flipping thing can be a little bit annoying to kind of remember which body part flips to which one and stuff like that. So yeah, that's something that I think we've had a lot of requests for. So I think that that's probably something that'll come up in at least a future edition here, probably even before Cartoon Animator 5, hopefully. Okay, so Daryl asks here, how about a tutorial on creating custom hair and having that work with masks? Yeah, for the hair, I could definitely recommend our tutorials on the hair creation. Now, the one webinar we talked about that is, gosh, it's the last one we did for Cartoon Animator here. I think we did it back in May. Let me just select Cartoon Animator here. Okay. Yeah, it was this one here, May 28th. I would recommend checking out this webinar. Okay, you can move it over here and just about hair. So we'll make it so it doesn't seem to be protruding. Always wonderful hearing your own voice. It sounds so awkward. I'll put this in the chat window for those of you. It's in the archive, but I'll put it in the chat window in case you want to check it out. This would be my best suggestion for looking at custom hair and how it works with masks, because I remember there's a specific masking part in this one here for Daryl there. And again, any questions, specific questions, just feel free to email me as well. Jennifer asks, can I import projects and characters from CTA 2 and CTA 3 into Cartoon Animator 4? The projects I don't believe can be imported, but the characters can. The projects, it's going to be a slightly different format, I believe, so you might have difficulty importing the projects just because there's so many improvements. I'm not actually sure, to be honest, but from what I recall, it was an issue. Let's just go ahead and give this a shot. We'll test it out live on the air. While we're waiting for CTA 3 to load up, I'll check out the next one here. Robert asks, will there be a tracking app for Android phones? We are working on Android tracking at this time. When it's going to be available, I can't really say at this point, since I haven't heard many updates in the recent years here. So sorry about that, Robert. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to just save a project really quickly. Let's just throw an actor in. Or let's do a scene. Oh, goodness sakes. All my, that's fun. All of my serials are screwed up for this one. Caveman. Let's throw Caveman in there. File. Save project as. Let's save it to our desktop as test. Okay, and there's test. Let's create Cartoon Animator 4. Oh, looks like it's backwards compatible. Okay, good. So your projects are good. All the characters are good. Yeah, so sorry about that, Jennifer. I just never tried that before. I remember coming across an issue where it might have been for Pop Video or something. But yeah, it seems like it's fine and dandy for Crazy Talk 3 into Cartoon Animator 4. Glad I tested that before I went too far. Yeah, so Jeremy mentions here the new Galaxy Note has a depth vision camera. Yeah, we've heard of that, and actually that's something that's we're very interested in. The Galaxy Note 10, the first one after Apple to get that depth vision camera, to my knowledge, but a very cool technology. And yeah, that's like I mentioned, we are going to be working on something like that for Android in the near future here. Oh, okay, so Michael mentions here the difficulty he had in understanding when I scrubbed the clip back and forth here. Yeah, apologies for that if you couldn't hear me. Maybe the clip sound, I can lower that in the future. Sometimes I just kind of get into the zone and just go back and forth, and I just forget that I'm talking over, or this, I'm scrubbing over my talking. So apologies to any of you who weren't able to hear me when I was scrubbing through the timeline and stuff. That's something that's it's kind of hard to avoid when you're really just focusing on it. Let's just close that down. I'll remember that for future examples, though. Pavel asks, is it worth to keep CTA3 on PC till the bugs in CA4 ironed out? You know, there upon launch of Cartoon Animator 4, there was a lot of bugs. We've launched a couple editions since then, a couple of patches since then, and those have improved a lot of stuff. Now, there's still some, you know, minor things that are still, particularly on Mac, I believe, since I'm using a PC, but particularly on Mac, I was hearing there was a few bugs that were, you know, fairly serious, but I believe that we've resolved those up until this point. I believe that there was a bug fix for Cartoon Animator 4 just a couple of weeks ago, actually. So as far as I know, most of the more serious bugs are ironed out in Cartoon Animator 4, especially for Mac. So yeah, I think you should be safe, Pavel, using Cartoon Animator 4 now. Right, thanks Nathaniel for watching. Thanks Daryl for being here. And I guess, yeah, Judy just got a Note 10, love it. So there's an endorsement for Samsung. Hopefully not a Samsung employee. But yeah, I use a Samsung as well. I have a Samsung and an iPhone actually. But yeah, Samsung's kind of been the traditional one that I've gone with. Yeah, so I think that seems like it's all the questions there. Not too much of a lengthy Q&A session here. So yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and end off the webinar. So I really appreciate all you guys for joining me. If you joined for one day or all 3 days of the webinar, you know, hopefully I was able to answer some of your questions and teach you some things along the way. And yeah, I'm really hoping that you can go out there and explore Cartoon Animator 4 by yourselves and with your projects, get some really cool stuff uploaded. Highly recommend checking out the Animation at Work competition. A lot of cool prizes to be won there. You know, there's no harm in trying, no harm in just submitting what you got. You know, you can whip up something in a couple of days, and a lot of it's all about, you know, your creativity. Don't even have to have a tremendous amount of skill. I mean, you can go there and do a stand-up with one character, just talking with your facial mocap if you want. Yeah, but again, that's about it, guys. So we'll go ahead and end off there. Hopefully I learned you guys a lot. Hopefully I learned you a lot. Hopefully you learned a lot in this webinar. Thanks so much for attending as always. And again, make sure you fill the survey and get that 10% discount from the content store. And yeah, that's about it. So I'll bid you adieu. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And hopefully see you in the next webinar.